The easiest way, in my opinion, to start this, and it's not the only way, you could certainly draw it with lines, is I draw this with a rectangle command, and I kind of like to show this with the rectangle because we don't use it a ton, right? So rectangle, if you know, is kind of next to arc here. It's the little guy up in the corner, and you're going to start it wherever. The one important part is once you've clicked it down, and like I said, we don't use this very much. Once you've clicked it down, you're going to want to hit dimension, and that's going to allow you to type in each direction. So this thing is really going to be 5 and 3/8. Okay, so if you just kind of watch how that happened.
Oh, sweet.
All right, so I'm going to hit rectangle. I'm going to click somewhere. It doesn't really matter in space where. Then I'm going to click dimensions, and it's going to ask me to specify them. And like I said, I'm going 5 because it tells you it's from the edge to the center 1, then from center to center is 3, and then they don't really label it. And I say they, I mean me, didn't really label this. So you can just assume that it's also 1 from the center to the end. So this thing is 5, and then they tell you that it's 3/8 of an inch thick, right? So I'm just going to go 3/8, and then I'm going to.
Wait.
He converted to decimals.
Yeah, it's 5. You can type 3/8.
So 5 should cost 3/8? Or?
5, enter. Then 3/8, enter. Now the weirdo thing about this is
small.
Yeah, it's pretty small. The weirdo thing about this is once you've entered this rectangle, you can see that it's kind of like looking for more input. My command line still says rectangle. It's asking me to specify the other corner, of course, right? So if you can see, I can flip this to go in any direction. So here it is up, here it is down, here it is to the left, and here it is to the right of my reference point where I originally clicked. So that top left-hand corner is tethered, okay? So does it really matter where I put this? No, because it's the first thing I'm doing. So I'm just gonna click anywhere, okay? So there's my rectangle. So again, it's not the only way to do that. You are certainly welcome to draw this thing with lines, right? I could just draw it 5 by 3/8 and then kind of go around the horn. I think the rectangle is a little bit faster, but it's equally as easy. So what I've drawn there, if you take a look, is I've drawn this in the front view, I've drawn this base plate for this bracket. And then I'm going to take off of the top of this. And this is where, we've drawn this already, but this is where people get confused here. If this is something you were looking at for homework, this top line right here is on the same exact plane as this top line right here. I hope you would agree with that, okay? Because this face right here is a flat face. So that makes people get all bugged out because I'm going to take off from this line, which you can see is actually here, right? But that is also, because it's a flat plane, it's also this line that they tell you that the center of that is 1 1/8 up, okay? So if you follow that part, this line right here, the top of that, is actually this line right here, because like I said, it's a flat plane. So I'm going to take a line from this top right-hand corner. I'm going to turn on ortho to make sure it's nice and straight. So F8. And they told me that this thing is 1-1/8. So 1 1/8. 1 minus sign 1 divide sign 8. And that's going to get me to the height that I need. And then this is the part Wasim is asking about. It says, hey, where is this thing located? Well, if I know I've gone up to the center of it, right? I'm going in from the edge, a radius of 1. So if I'm at the edge, I'm just going in 1. Does that help?
Of course. My mistake. I didn't
No, that's okay.
recognize it's R1.
No big deal. So this gets me to the center, and then I'm simply going to use a radius circle of 1, and then that's going to be the outline of that curve. So you can see here, I don't need this guy anymore. You can see here that I have that nice flat edge that you see coming up, and then it turns into that radius curve. Okay. So I need one more thing. Of course, I need this guy right here. This is that tangent line. So I'm going to go from this corner, and you guys know this already. I'm going to type TA and enter, right, to force it into that tangent snap. We've been over that a few times now. So TA and enter, and that's going to snap me right to the tangent of that guy. And now I am one trim away from making this thing look awesome. So I'm going to trim that thing out, and there is the front view, obviously without the holes in it, but there's the front view of that plate. Okay. So, like I said, I don't think this is easy by any stretch, but I don't think it's horrible when you break down the different parts of it. And, you know, I guess as we kind of go forward, this still goes back to that point of like, you got to be able to read the print, right? If you break it down into parts instead of looking at it as a whole, you notice that it has that base rectangle, and then you're just stacking Legos on top of it. Kind of. So from here, I'm going to use that same center point that I used for the radius one, but I need a diameter circle. They tell me that this dude is a diameter of 7/8, so 7/8 for that guy. So there's my circle.
7/8?
Yep, 7/8, the divide sign. And now I'm going to put in these guys for my my lines. These are going to be hidden lines, right? Because I would not see these two holes in this base plate because there'd be material in front of that, right? So these things would be on my hidden line layer. And again, you can either toggle to hidden, or you could draw them first and then put them on hidden. That part's up to you, but I'm gonna go from the outside corner. They tell me that this is in one and then up in one to the center. I'm gonna go 1 and then up 3/8 of an inch, of course, because that's the height of this guy. So 3/8. I can go ahead and delete that guy. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So in 1 and then up 3/8. So I get these guys. And now I have to kind of divide this each way, right? Because I'm currently in the middle of this thing. And for some people that's really difficult to do. And what I would tell you is that there's a really simple way to do that. You could divide 3/8, right? And get the decimal. Or if you really struggle with that, which I think that's fairly common, is that people get into these smaller decimals, and kind of struggle with them, is you could just draw the top view and then find out where the circle falls. So you could do it that way too. So what I could do is I could come up here. And I'm going to say, look, I want this to be 2.75 away. You remember that, right? Come on now. Right. Uh-huh.
Wait, you want to do 2.75 from where?
From the top of this guy. Probably the PDF. So I could do it that way, right? You're welcome to do it that way. Or if you're really good at the math part of it, you could just figure out what the decimal is. The way of doing it this way is now I'm just going to take off the quadrant here on each one. So this is pretty easy to do. I could simply trim these guys away.